Rogue borders, tough new laws on the way. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. Heavy fines and jail time for overloading, riding on pavements and wrong side of the road. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. And still here, Ruto top guns under fire as cost of living soars. We have got CS of Trade, Moses Kuria, David Chirchir of Energy and Petroleum, as well as David D. His tweet elicited a lot of mixed reaction over the weekend. Okay, and finally on the front page of the Daily Nation, death of trade unions. That is what is here. End of an era? That's a question. So wielding enormous power with their sizable constituency, countrywide structures and the potential to mobilize members on social or political matters, trade unions have always been a thorn in the flesh for successive government, but not anymore. The workers' lobbies of 2023 have lost their spark and are now just a pale shadow of their former self. And the person on the front page, you all know him. That is Sec-Gen of Kotu, Papa Francis Atwoli. You can pick a copy of the Daily Nation, the Star newspaper, or the Standard, and get on that. So, getting into the real discussion here, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's talk about the cost of living and politics. So who is speaking the truth? Kenya Kwanza, it will only get worse. Based on what Salma said, you gave Kenyans a manifesto. Kenyans had hope. President Uhuru Kenyatta was castigated. But yes, you might say that's politics. But DG, are we supposed to be getting into a situation where we are told, brace yourself even for us, because we still have 4 more years to go? We are at 211, a litre of petrol. Last year at a time like this was 134. So by the time we'll be closing 5 years, 500 shillings, what are we looking at?
A disclaimer. You know, the persons, the 3 persons are very serious professionals in this country. One of them is a politician. Politician is somebody who has represented people at some point. What we are saying, we are not discussing, and I'm sure when we come there, we will also raise issues. We are not discussing about the performance of the government. We are discussing about comments from public officers in public offices serving Kenyans. Now, I think we should be in a position to sit down and come up with policies that are going to aid this country get out of that mess. Nobody here in this panelist is saying what they are describing is not the situation, because Kenyans are suffering across board. Even the rich are now crying. What we are saying is, how do you put that message across? Because when you create an hopelessness, what are you doing? When you create a situation where it is like you don't know where you are coming from, where you are, and where you are taking the country, what are you telling Kenyans and the world? So this is what we are saying when we say, let us be sensitive, let us be concerned on what we are saying and to who and where. I think Kenya Kwanza has a responsibility to aid the country, to steer the country, to lead the country to prosperity, not to mention or to make utterances that are going to discourage many Kenyans, and by extension adopt policies that are going to be very unfavorable for doing business, because it beats logic. The head of state, the deputy president, the prime cabinet secretary have all been out of this country speaking to world-known multinationals to either expand their operations in this country, to either come and invest in this country, to come and team up with Kenyans to create wealth for this country. Yet, back at home, some people are making, they could be honest, because the situation, considering to what Kenyans are going through, that could be the situation. But the issue of how they put it across, it is like sabotaging national economy of this country. It is like sabotaging what the top 3 leadership of this country are doing. which I think it is unfortunate.
All right.
Yeah.
Wamai.
One thing I'd like to remind Salma is that, of course, OPEC controls fuel. But the Iranian President, Ibrahim Raisi, was here in July. So I was thinking these are the conversation maybe he would have gone to. They would have tried to tell him, you guy in OPEC, think about Kenya, right? But again, what can the government do? They have released the draft revenue, medium-term revenue strategy for 2024-2025 last week, right? If they were really keen about taking care of Kenyans, maybe instead of hiking the 18% that we saw in VAT, they would have looked at the cost of having fuel in Kenya. Of course, the landing cost of diesel, for example, here, everything constant, is 133 shillings. But when you look at the taxes involved, there's the excise duty, there's road maintenance, the petroleum development, so much, it comes to 37%. So if they were really genuine about Kenyans, instead of adding the 2% to make it 18%, they would have told us we are lowering the taxes. But one thing we have in this country, Victor, is not the issue of revenue collection. Because you see, cost of living is coming again from the taxes they're imposing.
Yes.
The issue is not revenue collection. The issue is how money is spent in this country. And again, I go to also challenge, there's something you had mentioned about overloading on the Star. Overloading the TIFA fines. It takes me back to the business I do. You know, they say, ukianguka kiti, you go back to what you do. I mean, the business of transport and supply of building materials. And my deputy governor is here. One challenge you're also facing as truckers is that you're paying cess per trip. When you go to the quarry to get Kokoto, per trip you're supposed to pay 3,000 shillings. You see, per trip, assess. So even me, I'm wondering, when the governor is saying that they're supposed to come up with solutions, even me, I'm challenging you, governor, look at those essays, because the ordinary Kenyans who are truckers, they are complaining, they're wondering, fuel cost has gone up, and then even the cess I'm paying at the quarry, you cannot add the money to your customer because they do not have there is no circulation of money. So we end up having the issue as truckers. Why do you overload? Because guys say that we see trucks are spoiling the roads. True, Victor. But as a businessman, you look at how you're going to make your money. So maybe guys think, let us overload this truck so that I beat the cost of fuel, the cost of paying cess in Machakos. When I jump to Nairobi, I'm paying a different cess. So when you look at even cost of doing business in this country, it is discouraging people. When you look at SMEs, truckers, anyone in business, they are being auctioned right now. Guys are losing their property because they cannot continue to do business in this economy. So in short, whether you're in national government, whether you're in county government, across the board, try and make life easier for the ordinary Kenyans.
That sounds like a direct call for appeal. Now the deputy governor is here and you've taken advantage of the situation. I like that. DG, before I come back to you, that's right on your face. Like, hey, I'm here and I'm telling you, do something. Salma, is this what's really Kenyans really waiting for? Because when leaders of Kenya Kwanza are pulling from both sides, same government, but their responsibility is to give hope, even where there is no hope. So, where are we as a country?
As a country, we came to Kenyans and gave them a manifesto called the plan. We are implementing this plan through what we call the bottom-up economic transformation agenda.
With this call of everything just about to get worse?
Yes, and our main...
Is that the plan?
And our main focus on Kenyans and what we need to do was to increase the level of production so that then every other person is comfortable at the basic of the chain. I've had the DG castigating about, our top leaders going out of the country to, I don't know do what. You appreciate that in the central region, we have cash crops that we would say were not, in the last regime, were not being taken care of the way it should be. We export coffee, we export tea, and in our plan, we were keen on, identifying market, both regionally and internationally. And when the deputy president left the country, that was the market he was going to look for. You appreciate also that in our plan, we promised the Kenyans that we will invest more on the digital superhighway. The president was out of the country, And you know, the tech space is where most of the youths thrive in, you know. So our focus basically as a government is to increase the level of production at the basic of the chain, so that progressively we will be comfortable. And when we mention about taxes, some of the business or service provider used to evade tax, paying for taxes. But when the Kenya Kwanza government came in, said we need to focus on, you know, those taxes, so that then we come out from this tendency of borrowing from, you know, the international, you know, monetary fund, so that we don't bring the economy back to its knees.
Okay.
We need to focus on Kenya being, you know, an independent, sustainable economy, instead of focusing on other, you know, entities to sustain our economy. And that is our focus.
What's the